This is TWiT.
Friday, build 17623 of Redstone 5 came out. Had a bunch of new features in it. None of them were really like barn burners. You get down, reading through the release notes, get down to the end where it says a few other little things we did. One of them is we're now testing a change where links that are clicked on inside the Windows Mail app will open in Microsoft Edge, regardless of which browser a user has set as their default.
So annoying. That's so annoying. Do they not know what default means? Holy
crap. They know what it means.
That is not good.
It was kind of bad that you knew it was bad when they tried to hide it by kind of sliding it in the changes section instead of pulling it out.
What's the
rationale? This is what Paul is going to talk about.
What's the rationale? I mean, why? There's got to be some user experience rationale here.
Yeah. No, so what they say is, we're doing this. We're doing this because Edge gives users the best experience in terms of battery life, security, privacy, blah blah blah. That's what they said in the blog post.
I made a choice to use a default browser that was not Edge. Exactly. Honor my freaking choice. But now, this isn't in the real Windows. This is in the make-believe pretend Windows. It's coming in the future. They're probably just seeing what people are doing.
Microsoft can defend itself by saying, hey, we said we were testing it. The feedback was negative. We're going to not do this, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Except for one thing. This is just one of a million little things like this that are happening in Windows all the time. And if anyone believes that taking this out now is going to force some kind of long-term change on Microsoft, it's not. This is that slippery slope has turned into a gigantic snowball rolling down the mountain at 100 miles an hour. I started saying, I mean, my initial reaction was very negative, and so I did something I don't normally do, which was I decided not to write about it immediately. I said I'm going to sleep on this one, and I'm going to.
Toss and turn.
I'll have that morning after moment where I'm like, okay, I kind of see what they're doing in it.
It's okay.
Yeah, that didn't happen. This is way worse than my initial reaction was. I made a joke about it the day of the event where this is based on an old Daily Show skit back when Craig Kilborn was still on, but it's like this imaginary interview where I'm talking to someone from Microsoft. I'm like, I don't understand, how, given your past antitrust experiences with product bundling, how you could so easily start doing something like this again.
Well, this was exactly what they got in trouble with right?
But guys, times have changed so much. They're not going to get in any trouble for doing this.
No, that's not that's not the point. Of course they're not going to get in trouble. They are absolutely not going to get in trouble. No. That's what makes this, that's one of the things that makes this really kind of suck, frankly, that they know they can get away with it this time. There is a broader problem at Microsoft that Mary Jo and I have spoken about privately. I've talked to Brad and Mehdi about this privately, and Raphael as well. And I'm trying to think of an intelligent way to present this publicly, but I'll just say it like this. We're tunneling to some future that serves a corporate need that isn't in the best interest of users. And they can come up with their reasons for why they're doing what they're doing. But they often use data that I think is completely worthless to prove their point. And in this case, for example, what they could do is say, well, we did get the feedback from our Windows insiders. And you know what, Paul? You complained about it a lot, but these guys didn't have any problem with it. And so we're going to go ahead and put it in the product because we now have the data to support the outcome that we were looking for.
Yeah.
And I think we're all familiar with that.
I'm curious how the feedback is going to come in on this because Windows insiders are a mixed group, right? Like there are some big Microsoft fans in the program who I'm sure will be like, hey, whatever you guys want, it's all good. There are also some people who are not.
Well, but the point is they have enough of those guys who are kind of pro-Microsoft goons who can just kind of tilt this in the direction that Microsoft wants. And their reliance on things like telemetry data, and I don't just mean telemetry, but things like telemetry data. I talked about the accessibility baloney that's in the setup program a few weeks ago, falls into this category. People told us they like it. Yeah, great. Yeah. It doesn't mean that it's right. And I feel like there's a lack of thinking going on here. But anyway, I thought about what they're doing here, and I looked into it. And for example, there are, like I said, there are actually many other examples where you click on things in Edge loads regardless of what your default browser is. In fact, somebody last year created a tool called the Edge Deflector that literally intervenes in these cases to prevent Edge from running because you set some other browser to be your default. When I was looking into this, I pinged Mary Jo on the weekend, which I normally don't do. I try to leave her alone on the weekends. And
on St. Patrick's Day too. Come on, man.
Yeah, because I figured he wouldn't be busy. I was like, hey, maybe I just forgot this, but I looked at this on the Surface laptop, which is running RS5. Yeah. Sorry, that's not true. It's running RS4. I looked at it on my Intel NUC over here, which I use for the book, which is running RS3, and they're both on Windows 10s. And I noticed that there's not even a web browser choice. You can't set a default web browser. So one of the things we've been talking about over the past few months is, what if Google Chrome did come up with a version that was in the store? Even if they did, you could not make it your default in Windows 10s. And this is the version of Windows that Microsoft sees as the version most people will use going forward, like S Mode in Windows 10 Home or Windows 10 Pro. So I asked Mary Jo, because I honestly couldn't remember. I said, did Windows 10s ship this way originally, or was this added over time? Like, I don't remember this. Yeah. But
I remember it did. Because I remember because of how I wrote my Surface laptop review, and I said, I haven't really been trying out Edge that much, but I don't really have a choice if I run Windows 10s. So I've been using Edge, and it's not as horrible as I had imagined.
So what led me to look for this interface was I went to the store, because I figured there has to be some little homemade browser thing in there, and I'll download one of these goofy little web browsers, and I'll set it as the default. I just want to see how this works in Windows 10s. And so I did. There are two, I think. And you've never heard of either one of them. They're made by Bob. He lives in his wife's or his mother's basement or whatever. And I installed the browser and I ran it. And then I went to settings to set it up as the default browser app. And that interface does not exist. Now, I should have known that. This is, I think, has in fact been the case since day one. I just forgot. I don't use Windows 10s every day, or hadn't been.
So you're saying if no Windows Store app will allow you to change the default browser from Edge?
No, I'm saying if you're running in S Mode or you're running today Windows 10s, you cannot set a default browser
at all.
Edge is your default browser. Right. And I had mentioned in the past there are other weird limitations with Edge and S Mode, including the fact that you can't change your search engine, for example, which is something you can do in Windows 10 Home or Pro if you're using Edge. And so even if you chose Edge and you wanted to use, I don't know, Google probably, you can do that today if you're running Windows 10 Home or Pro, but if you're running Windows 10s, you cannot. That choice is just removed. And I think when you look at I think of it as a continuum of things that are happening. It's not just Microsoft Edge and the importance of Microsoft Edge to the platform, even though so few people use it to actually browse the web. 50% of what happens in Windows happens on the web. Microsoft needs that to be part of the platform. They're integrating progressive web apps for the future. Those will be Edge users. You can imagine, by the way, if you're running a progressive web app and you click on a link, I don't care what your browser is, your default browser, it's going to open an Edge. And it's because that thing is Edge, and that's, they can make that excuse, even though they could fix it. If you look at Windows 10 on ARM, which has its own kind of special limitations around desktop apps and so forth, by default running Windows 10s. By default, not by default, by nature, those apps, even if you can get them running on the desktop, will run slow. It's like this giant funnel. I have a recurring nightmare that is very similar to this, which is that I'm driving down the road at night. It's like one of those old-fashioned Atari video games, pole position or whatever, where the highway's kind of coming at you and it's multiple lanes. And over time, it goes down from 3 to 2, and then it goes down from 2 to 1, and it's dark, and you can't really see. And then that thing that goes up the horizon just comes right there, and it just ends. And that's what Windows has become. They are pushing you
Wait a minute.
down this path.
You're saying
they're taking
Windows is a dark path.
Yes, is a nightmare in which
to nowhere.
To nowhere. Okay, just want to.
It's a nightmare that leads to nowhere. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.